It's Global News and Zoom on Nigeria. Thanks for joining me. On the news, amidst rising tensions, Japan sets to develop long-range missiles. Highly classified leaked documents offer a pessimistic U.S. viewpoint on the war in Ukraine. In Punjab Army base, 4 soldiers killed. WHO says first human death due to HRN8 bird flu recorded in China and scores dead in Shanghai air attack, Myanmar's military confirms. On Tuesday, Japan announced plans to develop and build a collection of advanced long-range missiles as it strengthens its defenses amidst mounting tensions with neighboring China. The Japanese Defense Ministry said it had signed contracts with Mitsubishi Heavy Industries (MHI) to develop and mass-produce the weapons under a plan extending to 2027. According to reports, the deal's worth over $2.8 billion following Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's announcement in December that he planned to improve defense spending and allow Japan possess counter-strike capabilities, the ability to unswervingly attack another country's territory in the event of an emergency and under precise circumstances. In taking the latest defense initiatives, Japan is bending the interpretation of its post-World War II constitution, which put limitations on its self-defense forces in that they can only be used for what their name implies, defending the Japanese homeland. MHI under the deals will start mass production this year on 2 types of already developed missiles, ground-launched Type 12 Guyot missiles intended to aim ships at sea and hypersonic glide missiles designed for island defense, the ministry said. Deployment of those weapons is planned for 2026 and 2027, it added. The Defense Ministry news release did not say how many of each missile will be acquired. However, MHI will this year start development of advanced versions. The upgraded Type 12 will have a range of up to 1,000 kilometers to 620 miles, 5 times the reach of the present version. At the same time, the MHI will commence development of submarine-launched missiles that could be fired by the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Forces fleet of conventionally powered boats. The leaked Pentagon documents posted on social media suggests the U.S. hasn't about the state of the war in Ukraine, emphasizing weakness in Ukraine's weaponry and air defenses and emphasizing a deadlock in the war for months to come. The documents, which appear to date from February and March, detail several of Ukraine's perceived military shortfalls as key plans for a spring counter-offensive against Russia. Many of the classified documents caution that Ukraine's medium-range air defenses to secure frontline soldiers will be completely reduced by May 23rd, suggesting Russia could soon have an aerial superiority and Ukraine could lose the capability to amass ground forces in a counter-offensive. The documents also highlighting persistent problems with the Russians' own military offensive, predicting that the result will be a stalemate between the two sides for the foreseeable future. Russia's grinding campaign of attrition in the Donbas region is likely heading toward a stalemate, thwarting Moscow's goal to capture the entire region in 2023, states one of the classified documents. Officials familiar with the situation said, according to reports, that the documents appear to be part of a daily intelligence briefing deck planned for the Pentagon's senior leaders, including Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley. The leaking of the documents, many of which are marked top secret, represents a crucial national security breach, and the Justice Department has started a criminal investigation into who may have leaked them. While the Pentagon is investigating how the leak affects U.S. national security, in addition to the assessment of the Ukraine war, the documents include intelligence gathered on allies and adversaries alike. Now, in the Indian border state of Punjab, a firing incident has killed 4 army personnel at a military station, the army said, adding that a search operation was ongoing. An unknown number of shooters were still at large at the base in Bathinda city, a defense source said, according to reports on Wednesday, on condition of anonymity, citing the sensitivity of the matter. An army statement said 4 soldiers died from gunshot wounds sustained during the shootings, which took place in the early hours of Wednesday morning. The statement did not mention the circumstances or other details about who was responsible. The incident was not a terror attack and took place in the canteen, a senior police official in Punjab, CSPS Parma, said, according to more reports. The base was sealed off and a joint investigation with the local police was underway, the army statement said, adding that no other injuries and damage to property were reported. All aspects, including the possible case of involvement of an assault rifle, along with 28 rounds reported missing 2 days back, are being ascertained, the army said. Footages showed barricades placed on the road outside the gates of the military station and security personnel deployed outside the boundary wall. The shootings took place at 4:35 a.m. 23:05 Greenwich Meridian time, the statement said. The military station, located about 280 kilometers, 175 miles north of capital New Delhi, houses mostly families of soldiers and is a residential army base. According to state police officers, are saying that the incident in the army camp bordering Pakistan did not appear to be a terror attack. The shooting took place as the state was on high security alert a day ahead of Baisakhi, a large Sikh and Hindu festival marking the start of the harvesting season. On health issues, according to the World Health Organization, WHO, a 56-year-old woman in southern China has died after testing positive for HRN8 avian influenza, making her the first human to die from the strain of bird flu. While HRN8 is one of the most frequently found subtypes of flu in birds, it had not been detected in humans before 2 cases appeared in April and May last year, both in China. WHO, in a statement, said the woman, who had pre-existing medical conditions, including cancer, had been admitted in the hospital with extreme pneumonia after falling ill in February. She died last month. The case was detected through the Severe Acute Respiratory Infection SARI surveillance system. No close contacts of the case developed an infection or symptoms of illness at the time of reporting, WHO said in its statement on Monday. All 3 people who contracted HRN8 in China are thought to have been exposed to the virus at live poultry markets. The Chinese government have ramped up monitoring for the strain and the risk of more infections was low, the United Nations Health Agency added. Adding that, however, due to the constantly evolving nature of influenza viruses, WHO continues to stress the importance of global surveillance to detect virologic, epidemiologic, and clinical changes associated with circulating influenza viruses, which may affect human or animal health. The HRN8 infection is not connected to the H5N1 bird flu pandemic, which has devastated poultry and wild birds around the world in the last 18 months and has spread to mammals, including foxes, bears, and domestic cats. William Schaffner, a professor of medicine at Vanderbilt University's Division of Infectious Disease, said in February the H5N1 virus has to attach itself to receptors in the lungs to infect humans, which the virus lacks the ability to readily bond with. Forced adaptation to reproduce in the lungs is why only poultry workers who breathe in contaminated fecal dust are typically infected, Schaffner added. The HRN8 virus is less dangerous for both wild birds and domestic poultry than H5N1 and is known to have been circulating since 2002 after first emerging in North American waterfowl. It is also known to infect horses, dogs, and seals. Myanmar's military has admitted carrying out an air attack on community hall in the central Sagang region that reportedly killed at least 50 people, including women and school children performing dances. A spokesman for the military, Zhao Mintun, confirmed the raid late on Tuesday, saying security forces attacked an opening ceremony for the office of an alleged militia group opposed to rule in Pazige village. He said, according to reports, that some of the dead were anti-coup fighters in uniform, but there could be some people with civilian clothes. He went on to blame mines planted by the militia known as the People's Defense Forces (PDFs) for some of the deaths. According to witnesses, the attack took place early on Tuesday morning with fighter jets dropping bombs on the community hall. Helicopter gunships followed shortly after, shooting at survivors at the scene and hampering rescue efforts. Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General, strongly condemned Tuesday's attack, calling for those responsible to be held accountable. He also appealed for those wounded to be allowed urgent medical treatment and access to assistance. The United Nations Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, also said he was horrified by the attack, condemning the military's blatant disregard for rules of international law that call for the protection of civilians. The United States also expressed deep concern, noting that the assault followed reports of an air attack in northern Chin state in which at least 9 people were killed, and said these violent attacks further underscore the regime's disregard for human life and its responsibility for the dire political and humanitarian crunch in Burma following the February 2021 coup. Burma is the country's former name. More Story says heavy amount paid to new South Korean parents. South Korea faces a looming demographic and economic disaster, with the country being world's lowest birth rate. In 2022, the average number of babies anticipated per South Korean woman dropped to 0.78%, down from the previous record low of 0.81% the previous year. The replacement rate in developed countries, the number of births required to keep the population stable, is typically about 2.1%. Families receive 700,000 won, that's $528,000 in cash per month for babies up to the age of 1, and 350,000 won, $264 per month for infants under 2, with the payment set to rise to 1 million won, $755, and 500,000 won, $377 in 2024, respectively. A further 200,000 won, $151 per month is made available for children and up until elementary school age, with additional payments provided for low-income households and single parents. Other benefits include utility treatment, babysitting services, and even dating expenses. In a district in Busan, South Korea's second-largest city, a separate bonus for giving birth 3 or more times recently augmented from 500,000 won, $377, to 10 million won, $7,552 in the rural southwestern South Jeolla province. Monthly stipends of 600,000 won, $453 per child are provided for 7 years, equal to 50.4 million won, $38,000. But whether splashing the cash in any way alleviates South Korea's demographic woes is still very unclear. Oklahoma board rejects first taxpayer-funded religious charter school. A school board in Oklahoma has solidly voted against an application to launch a taxpayer-funded religious charter school, which will have been the first of its kind in the United States. The vote creates the potential for a prolonged legal fight over taxpayer money, education, and the separation between church and state in the U.S. The Catholic Archdiocese of Oklahoma City submitted the application in the hope of founding the St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual Charter School, a first-of-its-kind public institution that will offer online religious education from kindergarten through high school. The school planned to take an inaugural class of 500 in 2024 if the proposal had been accepted, steadily expanding its student body to 1,500. However, members of the Oklahoma statewide virtual charter school board voted 5-0 to reject the application, though its citation. The clause is generally interpreted as prohibiting the U.S. government from establishing a specific religion through its laws or actions showing favor to one over another. The members of the virtual charter school board were all appointed by Republican-led state leadership. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt earlier expressed support for religious charter schools as an extension of the religious protection under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The board had 90 days to adjudicate the application, which was submitted on January 30th. Charter schools in the U.S. are publicly funded but function independently from the local school districts, raising accusations they funnel money away from traditional public school systems. Now in African scenes, Sudanese missed deadline to form civilian government. The signatories of the deal set to organize the gradual transfer of power to civilians, known as the Framework Agreement, have failed to meet a deadline to advance towards a return to democracy. A new Prime Minister institutions of the Transitional Authority should have been announced on Tuesday, according to a timeline set up by the parties. The deadline lapsed after the parties twice failed to sign a final transition deal over a disagreement on the integration of the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces RSF into the army. Yasir Arman, a member of an umbrella group of pro-democracy functions, wrote on Twitter on Wednesday that the point of contention between the two forces concerns the command and control of the committee tasked with overseeing the reorganization. There were no response for comment, neither from the army nor from the RSF. Divisions between Sudan's deputy leader, who is the RSF commander, and the military chief and de facto head of Sudan raises fears of confrontations between the army and the RSF. Both forces have amassed soldiers and weapons in and around Sudan's capital, Khartoum, in recent weeks. The army has greatly ramped up its presence in the city center, parking armored vehicles at nearly all junctions leading to the country's presidential palace. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll bring you stories from Nigeria. Welcome back. Stories from Nigeria, and we begin with alleged infractions not substantial enough to nullify the exercise, says INEC. Yesterday, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, strongly defended the election of the presidential candidates of the All Progressives Congress APC Bola Tinubu in the February 25th poll, saying no act of infraction substantial enough to nullify 2023 presidential poll. The electoral umpire, which responded to petitions by People's Democratic Party (PDP) and its presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, argued that the same 25% in 24 state constitutional require for that Tinubu won the election. Mr. Abubakar Yakubu Mahmoud, INEC beavers in the petition for collation purposes, adding that the INEC's results viewing portal IREF had put the against the manipulated in favor of the presidential candidates of the governing All Progressives Congress APC Bola Tinubu. He asserted that the cancellation of some 51,602 polling units altered the poll result in favor of APC. The leadership of APC also rose in stout defense of Tinubu's victory, said contrary to the allegations by Atiku and the presidential candidate of the Labour Party LP, Mr. Peter Obi, the presidential election was conducted in substantial compliance with the Electoral Act 2022. APC insisted Tinubu won. APC also claimed that the alleged unlawful nomination of its vice presidential candidate, Senator Kashim Shettima, and the allegations of conviction involving the president-elect were issues outside the jurisdiction of the Election Petition Tribunal. While maintaining the sanctity of the February 25th presidential election, INEC said that the declaration of Tinubu as president-elect of elections 2022 enough to have affected the outcome of the election or result declared. In the petition filed by Mahmoud, the electoral umpire stated that the election of Tinubu was valid and not marred by reason of corrupt practices, as alleged was valid by the petitioners. It pointed out that at the time of the election, Tinubu was qualified to contest, having met the requirements of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, and the extant Electoral Act. Over $2.4 billion tolling crude oil, Reps summons Finance Minister Mark Bila, chairman of the House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee probing the alleged missing $2.4 billion received from outside the country through whistleblower activities without first paying such money into the Federation's account as mandated by law. Bilas, while speaking at the commencement of the committee's investigation, also said there was information at the disposal of the committee that the Ministers of Finance was approving payment to whistleblowers in percentages in alleged breach to the whistleblower policy of the government. The committee, Abubakar Malami, the Accountant General of the Federation, Mr. Anamekwe Nwaboku, and other stakeholders in the whistleblower policy to appear before the House. And finally, on the news, Nigeria's economic growth to fall in 2024 to 3%, according to International Monetary Fund. At the milieu of the incoming new government in Nigeria, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has showed that the country's economic growth will see further slowdown to 3.0% 1 year down the road in 2024, while maintaining its projection of 3.2% growth in 2023, which also indicated a slower growth rate against its 2022 figure of 3.3%. A new leadership at the federal government is likely to kick off next month following the 2023 general election that was declared won by Ahmed Bola Tinubu of the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC. Nigeria's slowdown was contrary to stronger growth prospects for emerging markets and developing economies during the period, according to the IMF. Compared with the January 2022 WEO update forecast, global growth in 2023 is 1.0% points lower, and this growth gap is expected to close only gradually in the coming 2 years. The baseline prognosis is also weak by historical standards. During the two pre-pandemic decades, 2000 to 2009 and 2010 to 2019, world growth averaged 3.9 and 3.7% a year, respectively. A recap of major stories says amidst rising tensions, Japan sets to develop long-range missiles. Highly classified leaked documents offer a pessimistic U.S. viewpoint on the war in Ukraine. In Punjab Army Base, 4 soldiers killed. WHO says first human death due to H3N8 bird flu recorded.